Welcome to Mock 10 Sports. Glad you could join us for this June 19th, 2023 episode. We're on the back end, day 4 of the College World Series. A lot is going on. We already got a question in here from Marguerite Shoemate. Who do I pick to win the College World Series? We'll get into it just a minute, but I agree with you. I think LSU went into the tournament. I thought it was going to be LSU Arkansas for the national championship. Thought LSU would win it, but now going into Omaha with the information I have at hand right now, I would go LSU, but I think Florida is probably the most complete team right now. But again, Tennessee advances today. Great performance from Chase Burns. Really dominated. Went 6 innings after Dollander went 4 innings. Massive win for Tennessee. They advanced. They advanced to play the winner of right now, the loser of right now's game between LSU and Wake Forest in the left side of that bracket, the overall winners bracket. So LSU was up right now last time, 2-0 in the top of the 4th. Got a great pitching match right now. They need Ty Floyd to keep going. But speaking of the other SEC team, Florida, they're sitting there resting a little bit. They got 2 big wins. They're in the winners bracket. They are sitting, waiting to see who they're going to play between Oral Roberts and Oral Roberts. Just missed it real fast. And TCU. So Oral Roberts and TCU, they're waiting to play. They play that winner on Wednesday. Oral Roberts and TCU. Florida's kind of sitting there feeling good about themselves. I think they're the most complete team right now. Had some crazy mishaps yesterday in their game against Oral Roberts. Kevin O'Sullivan mismanages pitching visits. Just totally killed him. After 7 visits, he had to go immediately. Each time him or BT Rypel, the catcher, went for a visit, they had to make a change. And Kevin O'Sullivan admitted he apologized to his team after. That was a crushing that could have been a crushing blow right there. They had to go to a true freshman in the pen after giving up after getting Neely out of the game due to that. They held on against Oral Roberts. Florida sneaking by 2-0. Snuck by, Friday against Virginia in the first round last time I talked to you. Florida was just getting into the College World Series. They have won twice. They're sitting in the winners bracket. They're sitting pretty right now. They still got Jack Caglione sitting there waiting to pitch on Wednesday, but we'll get into a little college baseball. Also, we'll get into a little 2024 schedule recap. We aren't going to go too in depth. I know you've probably seen everybody's take out there. Everybody's giving their 2 cents. And I think a lot of it's correct. I think a lot of it's right. But I'm going to give you some thoughts from mine, some things I really liked, and some things I'm kind of upset. Some rivalry games, traditional SEC West games, kind of gone. Which that was going to be a case, but we'll cover that a little bit. Then also we'll cover today. Nick Saban was on Joel Klatt's show. If you don't know Joel Klatt, he's a college football analyst on Fox Sports. And again, he stated Alabama was favored against 3 of the 4 playoff participants that his 2022 Crimson Tide team played, and he thinks they should have been in the playoffs. I'm looking at this from multiple different ways. I'll tell you, I don't necessarily agree with Nick, but I see what he's doing. I'll talk about that as well. Then also, I thought college football analyst from 247 Sports, Josh Pate, does a really good job, posed an interesting question. What are college football's biggest lies? I'll give you some takes I saw and just give you my overall 2 cents of that. I thought it was a great question he polled. And I think there's some stuff we could talk about, especially as we're getting here into the offseason. But again, we got College World Series coming up. LSU up 2-0 in the top of the 4th. I'll keep you updated with that score as the show goes on. But as you know, we start off the show with some roster updates specifically from college basketball. Kentucky got a commit from 2023 signing, UCF 23 signee, shooting guard Joey Hart. So Kentucky, as you know, if you've followed college basketball here in the last 2 weeks, really since the season ended, I shouldn't say 2 weeks, 2 months since the season ended, Kentucky just having a hard time filling out the roster. They've got 8 spots left, and they received some other bad news. 5-star freshman, number 1 center in the country, Aaron Bradshaw has a foot fracture, going to be out 4 to 6 months. I like him. Great rim protector, can play above the rim. Kind of has that jumper, leaper mentality. He's very physical, violent as he's attacking the rim. Hadn't seen him shoot a lot of free throws, but just the overall motor is going to be interesting. The ability's all there. Everybody's projecting him to be a 2024 first-round draft pick. You can totally see that. Plays above the rim. He's a good rim runner. He played really good in that dunker spot. A lot of these NBA styles are playing now. I think the kid's got a lot of upside, but I do think this injury, being out, not being with his team, I think Kentucky's going to go play in Canada. This could really hurt this Kentucky Wildcat team and his development. I mean, 4 to 6 months. It's a lot of practice you're missing. He's got to learn how to finish strong at the rim because he's got to put on some weight. He's 7 foot, 210 pounds. That's going to limit his ability. I'm sure the strength staff's in there getting him some upper body workout, but it's still not the same as getting the live reps. I think that's going to hurt him. We may not see him till December or January or right when conference play is starting. So, again, Kentucky is not getting great news on the basketball front so far, especially heading into a big year for Cal. And speaking of Cal, he's hated the whole name, image, likeness thing the whole time, but he's coming up with a new collective, or he don't want to call it collective, but Matt Jones from KSR Kentucky said it's essentially a collective from what he understands, but the La Familia Club is a new NIL initiative for Kentucky. Cal's going to guys, apparently some boosters that he knows and trusts that are within his circle, and that's where the money's coming from. So I think it's going to be directed towards him. He's going to be able to control that narrative of who the money goes to, how much, what's going on. He's not calling it collective. Remember, he's calling it the La Familia Club. I think some of the former players that make some money are going to be involved. Cal's controlling this, and that's what he's like. It's classic Cal, who has been against NIL the whole time. He thinks Kentucky's brand gives that player the specific opportunity to go make that money. He doesn't think they should get money on the front end just going to Kentucky. He thinks the Kentucky player, the kid going to Kentucky, which I agree with, has the advantage of playing at the University of Kentucky, who is a major basketball school, top 3 basketball programs in the country. He thinks that's an advantage to the kid, so they shouldn't get money up front. He thinks your ability on the court should give you opportunities to go cash in on your name, image, likeness. But Cal's not calling this a collective, but it is. So he's jumping in that game. We'll see how this pans out. But not a great start with the Aaron Bradshaw news. That's going to limit his development for sure. They're going to really need him. They really need him in a big year for Cal. Jaron Stevenson, flipping sides a little bit. Looks like it's going to be between Alabama and North Carolina. Supposed to announce on Wednesday. If he's going to reclassify to 2023 and join the roster this year, it looks like it's going to be Alabama. If he wants to stay in the 24 class, the 6'11", 210-pound power forward is probably going to go to North Carolina. Mom played basketball at North Carolina. Things trend in Alabama right now. It's just all going to depend how he reclassifies. If he's a 2023, I think he'll go to Alabama. But be on that watch. I'll talk about that, where he goes, especially if it's Alabama, on Thursday's episode. But he's going to announce on Wednesday. But that's the update for the college basketball transfer portal right now. We always update you on that. And again, if you see the bottom of the ticker on this show, text your questions to 205-792-6925. That's my phone. I will answer them on the show. Flipping a little College World Series. We talked about it. Florida 2-0 right now. Gators sitting pretty. Waiting to see who they play between TCU and Oral Roberts. Hurston Waldrop just dominating, went 6 innings. I think I looked it up and look at it right now. In 3 NCAA tournament starts, he's pitched 37 innings, he has 37 strikeouts in 21 innings pitched. If Florida wins the national championship, Hurston Waldrop is a massive reason why. The Southern Miss transfer has been a massive addition for the Florida Gators. Florida sitting pretty. Again, Tennessee advanced with a 6-4 winning at Stanford. They were down 4-1, 1 point. Tennessee's just surviving, advancing. Tip of the cap to Chase Burns. Great to come in the 4th, 5th inning, come in. I forget when he exactly came in. 4th, 5th inning, taking over for Dolander and really finish it out. Man, Chase Burns, similar, not a starter like Waldrop, but if Tennessee continues to go deeper in this tournament, you can thank him a lot. You can think he was dominant in the Hattiesburg Super Regional, and he's been dominant in Omaha, or he was dominant today, continuing Tennessee's season. They advanced to play the loser of this game that's going on right now. Let me check that score for you. And then when I'm talking about the game right now, LSU Wake Forest, right now, says we're still knotted up according to D1 Baseball at 2-0 LSU. I want to get you a more accurate score. I mean, if I'm you right now, I am tuned into Mock 10 Sports while on my computer while I have this game, while I have the LSU Wake Forest game on TV. I mean, you can be killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, getting everything you need from an SEC, from the SEC. But right now, from an SEC news standpoint, from Mock 10 Sports, but right now it looks like it's still LSU 2-0 in the 4th. I'll keep updating you on that as they come here. But again, Nick Saban, not happy with his team missing out on the 2022 playoffs. He thought the committee got it wrong. In case you missed it, like I said, Nick Saban's comment on the Joel Klatt show, you can still tell the head coach is not very happy. Not happy about his team missing the playoffs. He's also setting this up a little bit. He's a strategic guy, one of the most plan ahead, he knows what he's doing kind of guy. He's planting that seed. I think he knows his team's going to lose a game this year. He's setting this up for the 2023 for the committee in 2023 to have this in the back of their mind. He does not want to get I guess for lack of a better term, I'm not saying this, but in his mind, thinking they got screwed. He thinks they got screwed by mentioning when he heard that they would have been favored against 3 out of the 4 playoff teams last year. From a Vegas standpoint, they'd have been favored against Michigan, Ohio. Alabama would have been favored against Michigan, Ohio State, and TCU if they would have played in the playoffs. From a Vegas standpoint, he thinks they should have been in the playoff because of that. He thinks they should have been in the playoff because of that. Very interesting take there by Nick. Like I said, he's always been a second order thinker. And what I mean by that is he's always planning ahead. So when him saying, hey, well, I mean, Vegas says we'd have been favored against 3 out of the 4 playoff teams last year. I mean, why were we not in? Is our goal to get the best teams in or just the teams who win the most games? Again, he's setting this up because I think he knows this could potentially happen again. Is it a great play? And do I really agree with Nick here? No. I think there's a time and place for this. He said this right when it happened, but Alabama was probably better than Michigan, TCU, and probably Ohio State. At least on paper, I really think the games could have gone either way. I really do. I think if they would have played at Georgia, Ohio State, or Michigan, they would have struggled. And again, on paper, they were better than TCU. They were better than Michigan. And probably better than Ohio State. They weren't better than Georgia. But again, TCU on a given day last year could have beat this Alabama team. I mean, what was Alabama? Did Alabama play a complete game last year, really? I mean, besides the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State, numerous opportunities, a lot of meat left on the bone from Alabama season. I'm telling y'all know this. I don't have to tell you guys. You watched the season last year. Was Alabama a top 4 team last year? Yeah, but they left a lot of opportunities. I mean, the first half of Arkansas was good. Some of the Iron Bowl was good, but they gave up 300 yards on the ground, and a lot of that was Auburn was committed to running. I really don't think Cadillac Williams wanted to get blown out in that game. They ultimately did, but I think he just didn't want to get ran out, so he played conservative. I think a little bit of that was Auburn choosing to run the ball a lot. And then finally, besides that, the K-State game. Other than that, Alabama looked like one of the more undisciplined, big mistake-making team I've seen from an Alabama standpoint in a long time. We've talked about this before, and a lot of people have hit on this. But that was a very uninspiring. So many penalties, lack of turnovers, crucial penalties at that point, in my opinion. But I mean, it was just an undisciplined team. They had a lot of opportunities. So I don't know why Nick keeps talking about this. But let's ask a few questions here. Do I think if we're just going off the eye test that Alabama was a top 4 team last year? I do. I think Alabama, with an eyeball test, and we'll get to this in a little bit. I saw some people talk about what are the biggest lies in college football. And I saw someone mention the eye test. That's not a thing. I think that is a thing, especially for someone who's worked in college football. I feel like I have a good grasp, humbly, on how college football works. I can tell you what a really good team is supposed to look like, what a good team, average, below average, really bad team is supposed to look like. I've evaluated for a long time. I feel like I can have a say and have a pretty good feel on that. Do I think teams like Georgia, Michigan, or Ohio State wanted to see Alabama in the playoffs? No. I think if you interviewed Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, or Jim Harbaugh, no, they didn't want to see Alabama in the playoffs. I don't think that means they're scared of them, but they know the potential and upside Alabama has if they come out and play their best, which they didn't do a lot last year. Does the Tide get unfairly judged against its past teams' success? Essentially, is Alabama held to a different standard because of what they've done the past 15 years? Yes, I think that's a fair argument as well. I think people compare Alabama teams to their 2020, 2016, 2017 teams like that. I think they get compared to those teams a lot. Even the 2018 and 19 teams that didn't win it all, I think they get compared to those, which isn't fair, but it's just human nature. Did they prove without a doubt they were a top 4 team? No, I don't think Alabama proved they were a top 4 team. I mean, yeah, did they went 10-2? Did I think they were better than TCU? Yes, I do. But again, I know Alabama lost their 2 games on last-second plays, walk-off fashion against LSU and Tennessee last year. But again, Alabama wasn't dominant in other games either, except in conference, really outside of the Arkansas first half and probably Auburn when they pulled away in the second half. They had numerous – if Alabama would have been dominant besides those 2 games they lost in the last play, we'd probably have a different conversation. Were they screwed by the committee? No, I don't think so. Was TCU more deserving? I think that's an argument. I think it's a total debate. But to wrap this up, I'm all good with the tantrum sticking up for your guys. I think that's good, sticking up for your guys. And again, Nick Saban is a second-order thinker. Anybody who's worked in that building knows that. he's not just saying this stuff just to say it. This is a chess, not checkers move. I think he's setting this seat up because he knows what could potentially happen coming up in this 23 season. But I'm good for a good stand-up, a good tantrum sticking up for your guys every now and then, like I mentioned. Like he did in 2011 when they had to go play LSU again, a rematch when they were a one-loss team. In 2017 when they lost to Auburn, didn't win the West, got in as the 4 seed, ultimately won it all. But last year's team felt like they never really had a true identity and never really took advantage of the opportunities they had. I just don't think this is an argument anymore, Coach Saban. I really don't. I don't think this is an argument anymore. I don't think a lot of people agree with him. I don't necessarily think he's just saying this just to keep hashing. I think there's some strategic second-order thinking he's trying to put in the committee's mind as we head into the summer, as we get closer, that, hey, if we get in this situation again, don't leave us out, because you saw what happened at TCU in the national championship game last year, right? I'm talking as Nick Saban. That's what he's thinking. But again, I'm just kind of tired of talking about it. You've had plenty of opportunities. Alabama's team last year just totally lacked in identity and left a lot of meat on the bone. They shouldn't have gotten the playoffs last year. But again, welcome to the offseason. We're going to be talking about this stuff a lot, but just wanted to talk a little bit about that, nip that in the bud. 2024 SEC schedule reveal. That happened last Wednesday. I was on the road going to my in-laws family beach trip we do every year. Paid attention on the road, but again, we didn't do a Thursday show because of that. But just initial thoughts. Just wanted to read them, jot down some notes. I thought, honestly, the league did a great job balancing out the schedule for the most part. They went back 10 years of data, tried to match up every team with different quadrants and tiers of the league. We're not going to go over those tiers, but I think they did a good job of managing getting Alabama. Alabama and Georgia have tough schedules, but you knew in the first year of the 2024 season with adding Texas and Oklahoma, they were going to try to get those name brands against each other. They just were. Realistically, I think they did a good job balancing it out. And again, we're a long way away. It's tough to automatically go back. It's a tough game in Norman. Who knows how Oklahoma will be in 24, but it's fun to talk about. It's an exciting time in college football. Just take this. Let me pause here for a minute. Didn't mean to talk about this, but the 2023 season, you need to take it in and bask it in, guys. If you're a true college football fan, you need to take it in and bask it in, because you're never going to see college football like that again. 2023 is the last year of how the SEC, how you've remembered it in the last 10 years. It's going to be the last time there's a 4-team playoff. We're moving to 12. We're moving to 16 teams in the SEC. College football is going to be completely different after this year, which I think will be a good thing, which I'm excited about this schedule. I was fired up reading it. My next point, adding Oklahoma and Texas is going to be awesome. A lot of great matchups. I mean, Alabama and Tennessee head to Norman in 24, and the Sooners go to Tiger Stadium in Oxford. That's going to be great for the Oklahoma fan bases. They're going to go to Tiger Stadium. There'll be a raucous environment. Heading to Oxford, Mississippi. If you've never been to Oxford, Mississippi, the Square, the Grove, one of the great tailgating traditions in the South. Oklahoma fans, I'll welcome you to come to that. It'll be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Texas. I mean, Texas gets both Florida and Georgia at home. When's the last time the University of Florida and University of Georgia went and played a game at Darrell K. Royal Stadium in Austin, Texas? It's going to be awesome for those fan bases. Texas and Oklahoma keeping the rivalry together, while also Texas opening up that Texas A&M rivalry again. They're going to be playing at Kyle Field in 24 to renew that rivalry against A&M. We'll also get Alabama, Georgia in the regular season. Two best programs in college football, I think, right now. We're going to get that. We won't get it in a championship setting. We may get it twice that year. But we're guaranteed to get it once. It's going to be fun. And Bryant-Denning, I think they did a great job getting that. But on the flip side of that, get a sip of water in here. The things I will miss. I'm going to miss the little SEC West rivalries a little bit. The LSU-Auburn. I always thought that was a fun series. When I was a kid growing up in high school, middle school, Alabama wasn't what they were now. They were pretty average during the Mike Shule years. Usually the winner of the LSU-Auburn game, and is usually the home team, won the SEC West. And I'm talking about the Nick Saban, Les Miles days at LSU and Tommy Tuberville days at Auburn. Usually the home team won that game. I mean, Auburn didn't win in Baton Rouge until the 2021 season when Brian Harsin randomly ended that Death Valley losing streak, Tiger Stadium losing streak for Auburn since like 1998. I think Cole Kubelik was playing offensive line for Auburn back then at that point. But I'm going to miss that. I like that rivalry. I really did. I liked LSU, Auburn, but I get it. You can't keep them all. Other rivalries. Auburn, Mississippi State. Always thought it was a fun one. Alabama won't be playing any of the Mississippi schools. No Alabama, Ole Miss. No Alabama, Mississippi State. Alabama, Mississippi State are the two closest SEC schools, 82 miles apart. Not going to be playing for the first time, I think, since 1941, 1942. Yeah, you're going to miss that a little bit. I was hoping Georgia would get to go to College Station. They've still never been to College Station since A&M's been in the league since 2012. But I get it. They're going to Austin. They want to get Georgia versus Texas. First time they played since the Sugar Bowl when Texas beat them. They're not going to send them to the state of Texas twice. And then I was hoping to I like the Florida-Auburn game when they play. I wanted Florida to go to Auburn. Last time, I think 2019, Auburn went to Florida, but Florida played in Auburn for wherever. Always fun. You got the Damon Duvall walk-offs, the year Tim Tebow, Urban Meyer, and Chris Leak won the national championship. Their only loss that year was at Auburn, Tim Tebow's freshman year. I think there's always a lot of good, fun games in that. I was hoping to maybe see that. But overall, I think it's going to be really fun. That's the thing that really rejuvenated me is you're looking at the matchups, and you knew Oklahoma and Texas were obviously entering the league, but it just hits you. It's like, man, those are going to be some freaking fun matchups, man. Alabama, Norman, Josh Heupel going to Norman, the old alma mater, got fired as the offensive coordinator. Who knows what Venables could be doing? He could be on the hot seat. Tennessee could be rolling. I think Tennessee's going to be really good in 24. I know it's hard to project with the roster turnover now, with the portal, kids transferring all the time. But I think Tennessee's real year is going to be 2024. He goes in there and embarrasses Oklahoma. They're going to be calling the man to come back. And I know he's not in a good – I know Heupel and Oklahoma aren't in good standing right now. He knows his alma mater. He won a national championship there. But he got fired as the OC. So a little tough blood, bad blood there. So that could be a fun matchup. Like I said, you got Georgia and Florida heading to Austin. That's awesome. Oklahoma going to Oxford. Oklahoma going to Tiger Stadium to face LSU. There's going to be fun matchups, man. There's going to be fun matchups. Wanted to go over that. And then finally, transitioning over, like I talked about, I was not planning on talking about this today. But Josh Pate mentioned, what are college football's biggest lies? What are college football's biggest lies? He mentioned, and before I say this, let me say, now I think what he means by this, or what are the biggest fallacies or false belief in college football right now? I think that's what he means. He put, these are his biggest lies in college football. He put, you are what your record says you are. He thinks that's a lie. I agree with that. I think strength of schedule is a big difference maker. Like, if an SEC team's 9-3 and a Pac-12 team's 10-2, I still think that SEC team could easily be better than the Pac-12 team. I think your strength of schedule does matter. I don't think it's just as black and white as you're 10-2, you're 9-3, 10-2 is automatically better. You got to look at the schedule. I agree with that. There's something to this. This next one I don't really necessarily agree with, but you needed to define this. I think sometimes we don't define exactly what this is. But his other one is, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. He thinks that's a lie. Yeah, to an extent. It's not ideal. I think if you went and asked any college football staff out there, specifically a head coach or offensive coordinator, they're not going to be real jacked if they got two quarterbacks both playing. I mean, when's the last time two true quarterbacks where they just kind of rotated them in and out in certain packages, really went and won a national championship? But maybe 2006 Florida. Tebow, I just mentioned him when they went and lost at Auburn. Tebow's freshman year, Chris Leak. They bring Tebow in some. Some would argue the year Clemson won it in 18. Kelly Bryant started the year out. Actually, I will say this to this day, they would not have won in College Station that day if Trevor Lawrence started his second college game at Kyle Field that day. Kelly Bryant stepped him up and prevailed them to that win, if you remember. But Trevor Lawrence took over later in that year. Is that a two-quarterback system? I mean, I don't think anybody really runs a two-quarterback system where they're rotating within each series or every other series like that. So I get what Pate's talking about here, but I don't necessarily agree with that. And again, define it. Like, what is success? If I have two quarterbacks and I win 8 games at Ole Miss, I may call that a success. In Alabama, I'm not. Or even 10 games at Ole Miss, I'm calling that a hell of a year. At Alabama, they're not going to be real fired up about. So it's defining the success. But again, the two-quarterback system, if you have two, you don't have one. I lean towards I don't think you're probably that great at quarterback if you're having to go back and forth between two. But again, we got to define that. What is that? Is that the Tim Tebow, Chris Leak combo, or is that Kelly Bryant losing the job ultimately to Trevor Lawrence to go in and win a national championship? I don't think you can compare the Jalen Hurts to taking over for Jalen Hurts in the national championship game. He came in at the end of the game. Great, he won it. That's awesome. But I don't think you can take that. I think if you have two guys that just really never separate, and it's usually two pretty average guys. I mean, Ole Miss started off playing a lot of guys last year, but Jackson Dart took that job over and started the last 75% of the season, 3/4 of the season. So I don't necessarily agree with that. If you have two guys and it never separates and you're just keep trying to play it, a guy like how Steve Spurrier used to pull quarterbacks all the time. If you don't really have like a guy consistently by the time of the first quarter of the season's over, the first 25% of the season's over, I don't think you have a guy. So I don't necessarily agree with that one. But here's my three off the top of my head. Commits do not matter until signing day. I don't like that. And that's easy because people just like to look at a lot of the negative in the world now. And I think people are like, oh, they see one decommit and think it's universal. I think I saw a stat last year. It was like 80%, maybe even higher, 85% of kids who commit usually stick to the original commitment. I remember a coach when I coached always used to talk about it's a lot harder to get a kid to decommit to a school than it is to commit. Essentially saying a lot of these kids don't like to go let people down and stuff like that. So they don't want to go call somebody and let them down, especially guys who've invested in their relationships. It's a big decision for the kids, as we all know. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But again, I think it's a lot like a coach told me once, it's a lot easier to get a kid to commit than it is to decommit. You feel good about him, get him to decommit. But at the end of the day, they usually don't. They usually get cold feet. They may feel like it for both ways. I mean, if you got him committed, you may be, man, I don't feel good till signing day. Or if you're a team going after him, trying to get him late, you're like, man, I feel good. But most of the time, kids do not decommit. They usually stick to their original commitment. I think that's a false narrative right there. I think that's one of college football's lies, that kids commits don't matter until signing day. When a school gets a big time commit, they're like, well, let's see if he signs first. 8 times out of 10, they usually sign. So I think it's one of college football's biggest lies. Now, I used to believe this all the time, but one of college football's biggest lies now is defense wins championships. You have to score points now. I think you're better off if your defense is good on third down, you have a high turnover margin, and you get a bunch of turnovers, you get a bunch of takeaways, stealing more possessions. Your quarterback has to be a top 3 player on your team now. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, you didn't have to say that. Look at Alabama in 2014. Blake Sims was not a top 3 player in that team. Had some great games. Auburn comes to mind that year. But overall, now for you to go win a championship, if your goal is to go win the national championship, I'm talking about the Alabamas of the world. I'm talking about the Georgias of the world. I'm talking about Ohio State, Michigan, teams like that, Clemson's. Your quarterback has to be a top 3 player in your team to win a national championship, to win a conference championship, in my opinion now. So you have to play good defense. Don't get me wrong. But you don't have to be shut down or light. You can give up yards between the 20s. If you're good in the red zone, hold teams to field goals, force turnovers, and you're good on third down, that's good enough on defense for me now. I could give a crap what you do, where we sit in total defense or where we sit in yards given up per game or passing yards per game. If we're getting 2 or 3 turnovers, we're making up for that. We're getting the ball back to our offense for them to go score. You give me a top 3 quarterback, he's one of the top 3 players on my team, we're going to go win a lot of games. So defense doesn't really necessarily win championships anymore to me. It's not the only thing. You have to have it. Everybody's, I'm sure I'll get killed for this, but Georgia had a dominant defense. Georgia had a good defense last year. Yeah, but their offense was almost unstoppable. The way Todd Monken was dialing up, putting up video game numbers. Stetson Bennett just really good within the system. Ladd McConkey, guys like that. They just all Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, so many weapons. One of the more underrated running back rooms in the country, I think. Running back room by committee. They had a lot of weapons on offense, and they put up a lot of points. Like, Georgia won the national championship last year because their offense was so productive last year. Defense was really good, and even the year before, really good defense. You got to have a really good offense now. I don't think defense wins championships as much as it used to. I think that's one of the big lies in college football. And then finally, the 2020 season didn't count. I think I see a lot of people say that. It seems to count in Tuscaloosa. They have the trophy down there. I guess they're giving out false trophies. And I thought about this because Texas A&M's always, when's Texas A&M going to have that big breakout year? Against an all-SEC schedule, they went, 10-1? Their only loss was to Alabama, granted, by double digits, I believe 24 points. They just missed the playoffs, Notre Dame getting ahead of them. And they beat North Carolina in the Orange Bowl. They were 10-1 Orange Bowl champions, I believe. I think they had a game canceled against Ole Miss. I forget if they were 9-1, 10-1. But they were one-loss team in the SEC with an all-SEC schedule in 2020. And people just forget about that. People just forget about that. That was not covering up for Jimbo Fisher and A&M, but people just forget about the 2020 season forever. And just, if your team wasn't good, it was almost just like, oh, nobody cared. No one was in the stands. It's like, well, from an SEC standpoint, you played 10 conference games, depending if you had a game canceled due to COVID. Damn, bet it meant a lot to people in Tuscaloosa and College Station that year. You better believe that. It meant a lot of people. I know this isn't an SEC team, but it meant a lot to a undefeated Cincinnati team that year. It meant something to some people. So I don't really get the narrative 2020 season doesn't count. I see some people throw that around. So those were just some 3 talking points I just wanted to talk about. Just what are some of college football's biggest lies? Tweet at me. Tell me what some of yours are. But the 3 of mine were commits do not matter until signing day. Most kids commit. They stay to their originally committed school. Defense win championships. Got to be able to score points now, guys. You're not just going to stop people and win 21-14. Offense has got to put up some numbers. And then the 2020 season didn't count. Go tell the people in Tuscaloosa and College Station that. They won't believe you. But again, a little bit of a shorter episode. Wanted to get you in and out of here today. We can go watch the back half of that LSU game right now. Let's see if I can get you an updated score before we get out of here. D1 Baseball is telling me right now, bottom of the fifth, still 2-0 LSU. But again, I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mach 10 Sports. Again, follow us on all social media platforms. I appreciate you subscribing. Remember, just click that little like button on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Go follow us on at Mach 10 Sports. Love the feedback. Again, look forward to bringing you next episode on Thursday. Sorry we missed last Thursday. I had some family stuff. We went to a family beach trip. We always do. Great time down in Tybee Beach. But again, sorry about that, but we will not be missing any more Thursdays here in the near future. But again, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Hey, go enjoy the back half of this LSU Wake Forest game. This is top-notch baseball. But I appreciate you joining us. You have a great rest of your night.